This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, with agriculture broadcaster Orion Samuelson and yours truly, Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, more disaster aid coming to farmers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Agribusiness. Mike Pearson is away from the desk this weekend. He's speaking at an agricultural meeting. But in Washington, there's more of an effort being exerted to try to help out farmers who are struggling with some kind of a natural disaster, whether it was last year or this year. It would be an expansion of what is called the WHIP program, and that would put money into the hands of farmers affected by, well, the Iowa derecho last year, even smoke from the fires in the West affecting the yields on the grapes in California, a whole bunch of disasters. This reminds us of the fact that many years ago there was the talk in Washington of ending these ad hoc disaster bills. They didn't want to have to respond to every disaster that came along, so they said, we'll enroll farmers in crop insurance and require that. Well, a farmer who accepts a payment under this program, if it is approved in Washington, would have to enroll for crop insurance for the next 2 years. But we doubt that it will stop these ad hoc disaster bills that Congress comes along with to respond to the disasters out there. Well, one crop that is not doing too well this year is the barley crop across those northern states. But it's interesting, barley isn't just used in beer or in livestock feed anymore. As I learned a few years ago when I spoke to the Pet Food Association, it's a huge market out there for agriculture commodities and pet food. And one of those commodities, as Al Gustin shares with us this weekend, is barley.
If this had been 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, the barley that Dennis Renner was loading out for sale would likely have been going to one of two markets, the malting brewing market or the livestock feed market. But today, this barley is headed for the pet food market. Pet food is a relatively new but rapidly growing market for barley.
But over the past 5 years, we've watched that really grow from probably 10-15% of barley produced in North Dakota to upwards now of 35% of the productions.
North Dakota is one of the nation's leading barley producing states. If a third of last year's production went for pet food, that would be about 10 million bushels.
Here's a nationally distributed brand of dog food. If you look at the list of ingredients, you'll see that barley is right near the top, a fact that is touted right on the front of the bag.
We've sent some stuff to the pet food market.
Many growers raise barley on contract with malting companies, but it ends up as pet food.
It's kind of a nice market for our rejected malt barley that goes. The specs ain't quite as tight. They can take higher protein levels.
It could be really important this year. When barley is stressed by hot, dry weather, the protein levels in the grain get pushed higher than what the maltsters might accept.
It will be a smaller barley crop this year. Acreage isn't that much less than last year here in the northern plains, but drought will cut yield significantly. For end users who contract with growers for production or who seek barley on the open market, that will present a challenge.
As to how they have to go about their pricing.
In fact, malting barley prices have come up considerably this summer, and the pet food industry is now paying almost as much for barley as is the malting industry. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Al Gustin.
We appreciate Al's report. There's a lesson there, I suppose. If you're enjoying a cold one, don't leave it accessible to old Shep, since Shep is getting some barley along the way, too. Barley, of course, is grown in the northern tier of states, from Washington State over to Minnesota. And that crop is not quite ready for harvest yet, for the most part. Let's talk a little bit about crops and markets. Jerry Gohlke, it's so good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, nice to be seen in this economy and the situation we're in.
You've survived the pandemic.
Yes.
You've survived some tough weather conditions in some areas. Let's talk a bit about that to begin with. You have crops in North Dakota.
Yes, and we continue to I want to say, kick the can down the road in some areas. We'll get pop-up showers all of a sudden on the one in the land in north of Minot, North Dakota, near the Canadian border, some of it. Suddenly, we got 2 inches of rain last night, and it was never predicted. and it was one of those things that just happened. So there are segments of North Dakota that have good crops yet, but it's always in need of a moisture to fill it out. And I would say the west of Valley City, west of Jamestown area, in Carrington and so forth, the wheat crops. I was up there, did a 2,000-mile tour, and saw the crops were very, very bad. And small grains, as you mentioned, wheat especially. Saw wheat a month ago that was you could still see the rows. 7-inch spacing wasn't closed in yet. Corn or soybeans both. I mean soybeans and wheat both, and you could tell that was going to lose at least 40% of that crop, and NASS verified that.
Western Canada, how bad is it?
Well, what I find interesting, we hear a lot. We have clients up there, and they're muddling along. But one of the crops that is growing up there that's should be watched is canola.
Right.
And that's been falling recently. It has not kept up with the soybean oil and the soybeans in the United States. So something is fishy. Either
you mean
they've
the
got
price?
enough of
You're
the
talking
price,
about the price.
the price. But from what we hear, it's also any day now we're going to run out of gas, so to speak. And so we're hearing a lot of that, but we just keep getting those showers at the right time to keep muddling along. In majority of the areas, there are some, of course, in Northern Plains is in trouble.
Yeah. You look at the Eastern Corn Belt, it's a very different story, isn't it?
Yeah. I was looking at what it would take to offset the losses in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota with a better crop in the other areas. And it's a good exercise for a lot of farmers and analysts to do, because we could do that. We could do that because most places are saying this crop could be a record. And even on my farm in northern Illinois, I would say that. Fantastic crop compared to what rain I've received. And I think the night temperatures have been down this year. We talked about that over the years. That's important. And we'll see a 20-degree drop in Illinois at night sometimes. And the dry weather, the dry air does that. Does it always in North Dakota, and so that seems to help them as well in the corn.
The social media shots always show us the bad fields, those that look tough, and
right.
Certainly those producers have a tough situation they're looking at there. We don't usually have a lot of pictures of good-looking fields. No. We don't tend to post those, I guess.
No, farmers seem to think if they post those that they're going to hurt the market and the market's going to go down. But
so have you already formulated ideas ahead of the August crop report? Where are you on yield ideas at this point?
Well, I don't think you can get much below 176, which is kind of common now. That's a couple bushels lower. What we're seeing, we saw some cancellations in the corn export sales by China a little bit. I don't think we're going to meet the objectives for this year, so we kind of roll things forward a little bit. What the government could do, and rightly so, and NASS do their numbers, is that they're stuck with the acres now. They could lower the yield a little bit if they have to lower the export. So it's that supply and demand side that has to come into balance. And it's a tough job. I don't say it's easy because, there are a lot of people in the media try to do that, and so they expect that NASA's any better than us, I think, is a stretch. They have a good track record.
Working backwards to trim those yield numbers, it just doesn't seem to...
No.
Doesn't make sense.
But it's math, and I think the worst thing we can do is look in our backyard and try to predict the future.
Boy, isn't that the truth? I mean, we've seen that in so many years when there's been crop stress. And I'm sure you would agree with this. One of the worst places to make your marketing decisions is looking out the kitchen window or your office window. Right.
And ironically, we made some very significant highs in January this year because we were looking ahead and what if and looking at Brazil and the market is a futures market. It's not a past market. It's looking ahead. And market psychology is a big deal. I looked back and on May 12th, which is a day before my birthday, so I looked at it closer. Corn and soybeans and wheat and lumber, of all things, made their highs on May 12th, and we've been going lower and lower ever since in spite of all the concerns about the crop. So the people that trade a lot of money globally look at this and they'll make a decision, and market perception is a big deal.
Hang on, we'll be back momentarily with you. Jerry Gohlke, Gohlke Group, joining us this weekend. He has more to say. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. Jerry Gohlke is back as we promised. Did you take any signals from the Fed Open Market Committee the other day? They had a meeting the other day and made some indication of where they're going.
Well, I remember asking some of the same questions that people would ask back when Obama first came into office, and they asked the Treasury Secretary, Bush started spending money, and our Congress did as well, the TARP and all these things, and they asked, well, how long are you going to continue to do this? And he said, or she said, I believe at that time, one or the other, said until it works. So I think that's the Fed's objective now, and you can ask them, well, how long are you going to continue to do this? Simulate the economy or keep interest rates low? We're going to do it as long as we have to. And I think that's the whole kind of insight that we have looking back at it, is that we've had low interest rates for a long time and been wanting inflation for a long time, and now it's here. And they say it's transitory, but that concerns me quite a bit, because that means higher interest rates down the road, and we've got a lot more money borrowed on a lot higher priced land than we did back in the 80s. And that could have a slowdown effect in that.
Well, as a producer yourself, how worried are you about interest rate risk out there in the future? How worried should a grower be who's got some debt hanging out?
I've been at it too long, and I'm pretty much debt free. So I want interest rates on my CDs, and I want to sit back and relax a little bit. But I had a I had a conservative father who didn't believe in borrowing money, so I inherited that. Fortunately or unfortunately, but it has a concern, because we have to deal with it. My underlying thought is, though, that our debt is so big, do you dare allow the interest rates to get too high? Because that segment of the financial obligations by the government alone would be insurmountable, and that's what have a lot of people scared all the time, that the stock market keeps making new highs and the economy keeps growing.
In an airport the other day, a farmer said to me, I've got a lot of old crop corn yet to sell. What do you say to a grower like that, looking at their situation now here at this point of the season?
Well, you need to get his name and then have him see if he wants to work for me, because I don't have any old crop corn left. But I think that's, I don't know why you do that to me, because it's, to me, I would look, and he's probably debt free or something and doesn't need the money. And most likely, like most farmers, don't want to pay income tax. So I think you have to look at it and say, if you have that old crop corn or soybeans in the market, in your bins for marketing purposes, take the money. Paying taxes is not a four-letter word, and pay down debt with it. There's come a point, I did a seminar for our clients, and one of the things I mentioned was, this is the year that you need to be able to look at your income situation and say, I'm going to do whatever I can to pay $100,000 in income tax. That's quite a bit, but there's a lot of money by larger farmers being made. And then take that net cash flow that you have left and pay down the debt, so that you get to the point where you don't care who's in office or who's in what party's in office. And my father said that once. He said, if there's going to be a soup line, I'm going to be at the end of the line. But and also from a bank standpoint, you want to be able to pick your banker, not your banker tell you what he's going to loan to you next following year. So sometimes you got to look at it. Why did we drain the swamp? And I started farming a long time ago, and my goals were met quite a while ago, and said I want to be relatively independent, and we have the grand opportunity to do that this year in a big way.
Appreciate your time as always. Wish we had more. We'll visit again soon sometime. Thank you, Jerry.
Anytime. Thank you.
Jerry Gohlke, our guest of the studio. He always provides some food for thought, things to think about after he's here. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform, combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability. Well, it's a major destination for many every summer. They come from around the world to see the aircraft at the show in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. They come to see the warbirds, the experimental aircraft. Of course, Chad Colby, being a pilot himself and the owner of a plane, wants to be there too. Here's his report this weekend from Oshkosh.
Max, before we can get to the Farm Progress Show, another big show that draws attention all over the world, that's been going on for years, was this past week, and actually this weekend, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And I spent a couple days at Oshkosh and had a great time. As you can see behind me, here's a new ag tractor. And yes, Max, check it out. It's the family model. It's a two-seater. This one's got a pretty particular mission in Missouri. They sell a few of these a year, a lot for training and some other neat things. But I had a chance to talk to them about the performance and honestly, about the business model right now. But what draws the people? The airplanes. And we spent a lot of great time here checking out the air show. It was a good time, but I had a special treat. I got the opportunity to fly with the Aeroshell's acrobatic team. And let me tell you, it was amazing. When the flight was over, I had a better chance to talk to the pilot, Steve, from Louisiana, who's a farmer, and we had a great conversation.
My name is Steve Gustafson. I fly left wing with the Air Shell aerobatic team. I actually started the team back in 1985. Alan Henley and myself got together. My dad used to fly this very T6 back in the 50s and 60s doing aerobatics and flying air shows, and it was there, so I took advantage of it and started flying it when I was a junior in high school and been flying it ever since. But we put this team together. It's just a lot of fun to do, and we all had jobs. I farm in northeast Louisiana and also an agriculture aviation pilot. Been doing that for 40 years and just been flying my whole life, having a blast. And I never knew that it was going to snowball into what it's done today. When Air Shell came on board in 2000, you know, it just started snowballing and here we are today, just having a blast, doing our thing.
Steve, talk a little bit about your farm in Louisiana.
Yeah.
What kind of crops you got? How the crops look this year?
Crops look really good down there. They really do. We've had plenty of rainfall, and matter of fact, I'm getting ready to harvest corn. When I get home, we're going to be gearing up to harvest corn.
Corn, soybeans, any other crops on your farm?
On my farm, it's corn and soybeans this year. We're going to plant some cotton, but just the rainfall couldn't quite get it in.
Right.
So, but corn and soybeans this year, and they all look really well. I'm really happy for all the farmers. We got some good prices finally, and just very blessed.
If you get the opportunity, make sure you put Oshkosh on your calendar.
That's an event that, along with the Farm Progress Show and Husker Harvest Days, and this year the half century of progress, makes Chad's summer. There's no doubt about it. Coming up a little bit later, we'll tell you about a destination that you'll want to put on your schedule, a great antique farm machinery museum. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. It's fair season. Some of you have already had your county fairs. Many of you are waiting for the big event ahead. And then there are those state fairs, too, yet to come. It's the culmination of a lot of effort, to be sure. On behalf of, well, young people and parents, it's a team effort to get the exhibits ready for the fairs, but it's a tremendous learning experience, too. Our farm broadcaster friend Dave Williams in Pennsylvania has watched this for many years. You've had a front row seat there in the Keystone State. How's the fair season going, Dave?
Well, you know, it started out rainy, but now we're starting to get some nice weather. And my hometown fair, Honesdale, or Wayne County Fair, is actually starts here in August 6th and through the 14th. And a great fair. One of the 5th largest livestock sales in the state. And, you know, we're proud of a lot of things that are happening here in agriculture right in Wayne County.
That Wayne County Fair has been going on how long? It's quite a history behind it, right?
Well, it sure is. You know, 159 years. In 1862, during the Civil War, it started. But, you know, that's the same year the USDA started, too. So we have a long history here. And you think about it, the men that started that fair at a time of turmoil in our country like that, you got to give them a lot of credit. But, you know, in the last year through COVID, we've seen them farmers and people in agriculture keep right on going.
You know, it has taken a lot of effort of many folks to keep these fairs alive over the years. And as you pointed out, 1862, President Lincoln started what we now know as the U.S. Department of Agriculture back then. Do you see a wide range of exhibits at the Wayne County Fair? Give us an idea of what you would see when you come through there.
Well, you know, naturally livestock is a big issue there. You know, the hogs, the chickens, the all kinds of different animals, and beef and dairy, and they have so many dairy cows. They actually have to. Part of the week is for the red cows, and part is for the Holsteins and black and whites and that. But you know, the great part of it is the showmanship of these young people learning how to be real sportsmen, and the other part is the businesses here in Wayne County that come out to support the livestock sale, which is on the last Saturday of the show. They have a lot of the granges, the farm bureaus. They're all there showing different things, and talking to people. But then, of course, vendors of all kinds, and rides, and so many things that we take for granted sometimes, but it's really a place where people come from all over the country just to join in, to learn a little bit about agriculture, and that's the important part of a fair.
One other real important thing is that learning experience for the young people that stretches over many, many months. They learn, for one thing, to care for the animal that they're going to be exhibiting. They learn the disappointment of, maybe an animal that just doesn't turn out well, but they also learn the responsibility of, feeding that animal first before they feed themselves. And the fact that that animal has to be cared for. That reliability is something that young people learn in this run up to the fairs, isn't it?
And I see across the board, businesses, no matter where they are in Pennsylvania, they look for these young people that are involved in FFA, 4-H, because they learn responsibility, and they make such great people to work in the general public. And, they know how to get along with people. They know how to take care of things. They know how to get the job done.
You make a very interesting point. I have talked to many employers. Now, these days, obviously, there's a real challenge in getting workers. But when they can pick and choose, when they can go down the list and look at the qualifications that a person has, he or she, they have told me, really will stand out if they've had, FFA experience over many years, perhaps 10 years as a 4-H'er. It just jumps out at them as they know this is somebody who'll be able to get the job done and to be there consistently to be relied upon.
So many times we hear about FFA. And of course, 4-H, all of us have been involved somehow with 4-H, especially the broadcasters and that. But when it really comes down to FFA, our county didn't have it for almost 40 years. And I'm proud to say it came back. But the great part of it is the need for it was there. The school superintendent told me, he says, I never thought it would flourish like it does.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the first urban chapters in America was in Philadelphia. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. The largest FFA chapter in Philadelphia is the W.B. Saul School, and right in the heart of Philadelphia. And we're proud of that school. They do a great job. Many of the children that attend that come from broken families, but they excel.
One quick report on weather in your area in the last few seconds here. How are you doing for moisture?
Well, the main crops are all doing great. Of course, the hay farmers are having a tough time because in between the showers, they got to put the hay in, and it isn't always only one day of the sunshine. That don't work. But in general, the corn crops and the small grains are doing great. We're looking to a prosperous year in the future, and get them dairy prices up there, we'll all be happy.
We caught you between haying operations, and we appreciate you setting some time aside for us, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
The Pennsylvania Farm Country Radio Network, Dave Williams joining us here on the broadcast this weekend. We appreciate his time for sure. Yeah, there's much effort that goes into these fairs, much volunteerism. That's one thing that comes to mind so often when I think of how these fairs happen. It isn't just a matter of a few days or a few weeks before the fair is held, but all year round there are volunteers in the community out there painting up the buildings, maintaining the gates, keeping the electricity flowing too. There's more coming up on This Week in Agribusiness. Stay with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. Welcome back to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. The countdown is on. The clock is counting down to the big half-century of Progress show. You've heard us talking about it for many, many weeks now, the largest vintage farm equipment show in America. I'd like to say that it gives us a better handle on where we are and where we're going if we have a better grasp on our past. And Brian Newcomb is one of those guys out there who'll be helping us. Brian, with the Line IFS or the Growmark system, you guys will help provide the fuel, which is very important during that show. Looks like a fuel truck behind you there.
Yeah, sure is, Max. We've got this will be the exact truck that'll be here delivering fuel on the show grounds here during the show, and we're really proud to be a sponsor of the show here. A lot of the organizers that put this show on, they're not only doing all the work here, but they're also customers of ours. And so it really made perfect sense for Growmark and Illini IFS to be a sponsor of the show.
It's volunteerism that makes it happen, to be sure, and fuel is so important because those combines and pickers and old tractors will be working out there over the show grounds. How wide an area is covered by Illini IFS?
So Illini IFS covers 5 counties here in Illinois, and that includes Champaign, Vermilion, Douglas, Edgar, and Clark counties. And then we also cover the contiguous counties over in Indiana as well. So we cover a pretty good size of geography.
Where you are standing now, I believe, is fairly close to where the tractor pulling track will be during the show when it comes up at the end of August. The pull is much appreciated and much anticipated by the people attending the show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very partial to that because I actually get to sit up on that old 510 Massey Combine and help announce it with Carl Downs and Art and the whole crew. So, yeah, we're actually standing on it here right now on the wheat field here behind me is essentially the track, and then the cornfield behind us, obviously part of the demonstrations that'll be taking place here.
You know, as you walk around through the crowd during the pull, there's just so much enjoyment, camaraderie, friendship, companionship there, and folks have had to wait 2 years for this. It'll be quite a joy, I gather.
Oh, there's no doubt, Max. I mean, it's you know, they're competitors on the track, but they're one big family. And I tell you what, yeah, the excitement is building up for sure, and it's going to be a fun time. I can't wait.
3 nights of pulls, 3 afternoons of pulls, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. First 3 days of the half century of progress. You and the Downs boys make quite a tag team up there on the microphones. We will enjoy it, and we look forward to it, Brian.
My pleasure, Max. Thanks for having us on today.
Brian Newcomb, one of those volunteers helping make possible the half century of progress, August 26th through the 29th at Rantoul, Illinois. Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not. Nearly every day there's a story, it seems, about the problem that water is, the lack of water. Greg, we saw the report just a few days ago about all of the water thefts that are going on in California. They're stealing it from fire hydrants, pumping stations. It's not good.
Not good at all. Although weather has been good from a monsoon standpoint in the Southwest. We'll take a look at that in just a second. While there's been maybe some element of drought improvement, it's the lakes, it's the reservoirs that are continuing to be a problem, and the lack thereof filling them up. And can't buy an organized outbreak of moisture in the Pacific Northwest. Had a couple of spotty showers last week, but the problem is it's the lightning and it's the variance to the wind as the rush of wind comes on down, these microbursts, and it kind of messes up the whole fire containment problem in the Pacific Northwest. Some 400,000 acres if you take it in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington State. And little change with the ridge here, still in position, a couple of thunderstorms on the front side. It is a push of cooler air in quotes, but still above average temperatures across the Dakotas. What is it, 97% of that North Dakota topsoil is dry, very short, just non-existent. And again, outside of an errant thunderstorm, the dry pattern continues on here along with the heat into the late portion of the week. Some slight cooling into the Pacific Northwest again later in the week. Here's the hot ridge, but undercutting it. And again, while the monsoon setup will relax somewhat this week, still a scattering of showers and thunderstorms anticipated as far as areas of southeastern California. Seasonal heat and the morning clouds across the coastal sections, and the hot weather, but not the triple-digit stuff across the central and southern plains, and a largely dry setup there. Very little change. We'll get a front to zip along in the upper air. Just will focus a couple of thunderstorms of the central and southern plains. Very hot weather down here as opposed to here. Again, pretty quiet weather picture as you would expect in the valleys of California late in the week.
Brother Steve in Scottsdale was telling me it was almost half the average annual rainfall in that event a few days ago, and it came with wind too.
That's right, boy. Some of these showers and thunderstorms, heavy and severe. You get your rain, but it comes at a price with with green snap, lodging, and blowdown, but it's a much quieter and far more comfortable setup across not only the plains here, but throughout the Corn Belt locales as well. But the heat bubble out here across the Intermountain West and the central and southern plains will move back to the north, and storm clusters again will run the periphery to the upper Midwest and through the western Great Lakes region, and a more notable feel to late July and early August on the temperature and humidity setup across the Corn Belt as well. A couple of showers and thunderstorms over the southwest. There's the monsoon setup and a bit of a front down here, and we'll keep an eye on the tropics. A weak system down here, disturbed weather may accentuate some of the rainfall again through the Delta and Ohio Valley. What else is new? That wet weather pattern continues on here for the late portion of the week.
If some of those rains pop up, they can make a big difference in late soybeans, double crop soybeans at this stage of the game.
Exactly, and we'll see an absence of those to start into the eastern Corn Belt. But yeah, that's been the upside and uptick of some of the storms, severe, but you do get your rainfall, and we've seen some double-digit totals here over the past couple of weeks into the upper Midwest, and some drought improvement as well as in the northeast and New England. But early into the week, very comfortable outdoor work weather throughout much of the Corn Belt. This warm front moves to the north, and here come the thunderstorm clusters through the Corn Palace, upper Midwest, and through the Canadian Prairie, back into quiet weather, comfortable weather in the northeast and New England with high pressure in control. Front draped out, the wet weather pattern continues on, and especially in through Florida, and we'll keep an eye on this weather pattern here, and a weather system weak and benign, but still accentuates the moisture over the Gulf Coast with showers and thunderstorms on the increase from Dixie northeastward across the Carolinas, and additional downpours anticipated later in the week.
Now Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you. Will it be a case of the haves and have-nots continuing? We look at the northern plains especially. Greg, show us what you see in your precipitation for the next week.
Nothing going on there again from a significant moisture gain and topsoil moisture improvement and crop improvement scenario into the northern plains and upper Midwest. Quiet weather picture where we had severe weather, hail, high wind. You appreciate the rain, don't you? But not the 70-mile-an-hour winds. We think that derecho effect will be winding down, but maybe scattered quarter to half inch across parts of the Corn Belt. Here's where the drenching rains and severe weather with a drape front and a weak little tropical doodah through the central Gulf. Don't think it'll be named, but it'll accentuate the rains here. More downpours over parts of the southwestern states. That's a good thing. That's a bad thing as well, but at least it is moisture and maybe a couple of these dry base lightning produced thunderstorms that continue on to the Pacific Northwest. More fires than anything out there.
How much heat do you see for the week of August 9th?
Now again, we've had some retrogression, fancy word for a backing up of the hot ridge, but it's back into play. Yeah, the 105, 108 degree actual air temperature into parts of the upper Midwest, northern plains, big sky country. Clouds keep temperatures a bit below average here. We're okay on temps over the eastern Corn Belt locales and still hot in through the valleys of California, where we continue on with a modest, at least a setup here of monsoon moisture. A couple of weak tropical systems. Don't think they're named, but the rains continue on here. And here's the expanding hot dome, sinking air. Little, if any, organized rain below average through much of the Corn Belt here heading through mid-August.
That hot dome. I guess this is about the time of the year we start thinking about the dog days of summer, whatever they are. The week of August 16th. Show us your map.
Yeah, we're actually kind of winding out of them from a climatological norm. Those temperatures on average over the past 30 years have peaked. Still hot enough, though, in many areas, and still not done with probably some near triple-digit readings through the northern plains. Temperatures are down, but humidity up in this part of the country. Readings about average through the southern Corn Belt and a little warmer than average across the valleys of California, the Pacific Northwest, where we do get normal moisture, whatever that may be, and it's not much to speak of. In the Pacific Northwest, we wind down the monsoon setup here in the southwest for now. Gulf Coast is active and still generally below or normal at best for moisture throughout much of the Corn Belt and the Plain States, too.
Guy came up to me in Missouri the other day. He said, I love that Greg Solier. I said, I knew there was one out there somewhere. Show us your map for the week of the half century.
And the check's in the mail to that gentleman. And, well, here it is, by the way, half century. Long lines at the beverage stand, I think. We'll look at this. This is probably 90, maybe some 95-degree heat in this part of the country. Back to triple-digit stuff. Got to keep an eye on that western Corn Belt. Probably done. Same with the spring grains. A little below average here. Gulf Coast of the southeastern part of the country, where the monsoon setup gets into rally mode and builds all the way into sections of the Intermountain West and Great Basin part of the country. Wet through Texas, the Gulf Coast area, and that expanding hot dome and sinking air. Little, if any, organized rains from the Canadian Prairie, south and southeastward into parts of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic region, too.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Some of the tractors in that museum in Perryville, Missouri are more than a century old. But like this Minneapolis Moline, so superbly restored, you hardly know how old it is. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Store-Lock Tool Cabinets. If you see them out at the shows this summer, really check out that quality. I'm telling you, you'll like it. StoreLock.com. Well, Kenny Buckite in Perryville, Missouri, and I'll show you a little more of the museum later on, has assembled a tremendous lineup of antique tractors. This Minneapolis Moline was made back in 1919. That tractor has 9 horsepower on the drawbar, 18 on the pulley. It weighs 3,590 pounds. That Moline Universal D, and it is 1,800 RPMs. Check it out in person when you get to Perryville, Missouri sometime. Check out the auction items that are coming up in the next week, the equipment they'll have for sale, thanks to the folks at Big Iron. Here's Mark.
Well, Max, we kick off our August auctions with a big one on August the 4th. Over 1,300 items and several retirement sales will take place here in August. But Mark Raymakers is retiring from Monroe, Nebraska, an organic farmer, folks, with organic farmed equipment, a John Deere 7210 tractor, John Deere 7700 tractor. He's got 2 John Deere 6620 Titan II combine selling. Jim Polis is retiring from Ames, Nebraska. They've got a Case IH MX 285 mechanical front tractor, a Case IH 7120 combine, and a Sunflower 34-foot flex tandem disc. Dale Orff is retiring from Grassy Butte, North Dakota. He's got the dependable Massey Ferguson 1155 tractor with a blade. He's got an Alice Chalmers 7045 tractor. Check out his International Farmall Super M tractor with a loader, grapple fork, and hay sweep. We also have Benny Quam's retirement sale in Elk Point, South Dakota, selling a John Deere 8200 mechanical front tractor. Donna Heigl Estate in Mitchell, Nebraska will sell a John Deere 2630 tractor, an International 1460 combine, and Francis A. Lee Trust in Nebraska will be selling a John Deere 7520 mechanical front tractor with a loader. Just outstanding equipment on these retirement and estate sales, utilizing BigIron.com here on August the 4th.
The FFA Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide, we stand for you. As we put FFA in the spotlight this weekend, let's go to Missouri. Chillicothe, Missouri. Seth Hansen joins us there. You're a state FFA vice president, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you also, if I'm not mistaken, recently were the state 4-H council president. Am I right?
Yep, that's correct.
So you have a great story to tell about those two organizations. When somebody asks you about FFA and the value of FFA, what do you say to them, Seth?
You know, I always think FFA is really good at just finding whatever niche that is for the certain member and growing it. I know not every member is inclined to show animals, but being able to compete in the agri-science fair and find new innovations for agriculture, there's certainly something for everybody, and FFA helps grow that for that individual person.
You mentioned animals. Animal science is a focus for you, is it not?
Yep, that's true. This fall I'll be at the University of Missouri majoring in animal science.
How far along will you be there?
You mean just like how many credits I have? Or?
Oh, is this your freshman year?
Yeah, I'll be a freshman.
You have a lot of excitement ahead of you there for sure. Missouri Tiger, huh?
Yep.
You will draw a lot of valuable experience from being not only on campus but around other students such as yourself. You'll learn from each other, you form firm friendships. What's that career goal for you out there, Seth?
Well, my end goal would be doing veterinary work with feedlots and sale yards. I kind of think that's a little bit more interesting versus working in a practice, but I know veterinary medicine is a very broad field, so we'll see where it takes me. I'm keeping my eyes open.
Yes, keep your options open too, by all means. We wish you well. We have a great need, as you know, for large animal veterinarians in this country. Seth Hansen, great to meet you. Thank you.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
My subject this week is farm labor, or more accurately, the shortage of farm labor. A front-page story on the Illinois Farm Bureau newspaper recently brought to my attention this situation, and let me quote, Linnea and Joel Kustra's decision to sell their dairy cow herd in 2018 was not easy. The Woodstock, Illinois residents were dairy farmers for more than 40 years, transitioning to an immigrant workforce in 2000 to tend to their 300 cows and 250 young animals. The switch was prompted by frustration with the domestic labor pool. Let me quote, after switching to an immigrant workforce, our lives became much easier, said Linnea Kustra. Our decision to sell our cows in 2018 was in part because we were worried about losing our workforce. The atmosphere regarding immigrants in the workforce were hostile. We knew we could not run this business without them. I can definitely say that the domestic workers just aren't there to milk cows or do the hard work of farming. As a matter of fact, the Senate is holding a series of hearings on the challenges facing immigration workers for American agriculture. And if you depend on immigrant labor for your farming operation, pay attention to what's happening in Congress at the moment. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin is holding a series of hearings dealing with the farm labor problem in hopes of writing some new legislation. It's important that we have immigrant workers available here in American agriculture. It's important that you let Congress know how you feel. Stay safe, stay well. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
We are in the early stages of the outdoor farm show season. We had a report a few days ago. They had a great crowd at the show in Wisconsin. The big one is coming up in just a few weeks. The Farm Progress Show at Decatur, Illinois, August 31st, September 1st and 2nd. Matt Youngman with that show told us the other day there will be products that farmers have never seen before. New products developed even though the world has been in the midst of pandemic.
Technology continues to advance, and even though the world was kind of shut down, the technology continued to advance. So there's new products that will be unveiled between now and Tuesday morning at the Farm Progress Show, but there's been 2 years worth of new products unveiled, new technologies unveiled that have not been seen in person. So this is everybody's chance to not only see what's new and breaking news, but all the new things that you've missed during the pandemic.
The hallmark of that show at Decatur, Illinois is the field demonstrations, and the crops for those demos have been looking very good, according to Matt Youngman.
The corn looks great, went in on time. You know, there are years we have troubles getting it in, and there's some question on whether it's going to be ready. That's not a problem this year. We're going to have corn that's ready to harvest. I've pulled some ears already, and it looks great. You know, everybody's excited, you know, with all the new products that people haven't seen in person, whether it's the John Deere X9 or the new autonomy tools that Raven is coming with, or any number of other things that are new. Those field demonstrations are the place to watch it go out and work.
Even though the show is still a few days away, there's something you can be doing, as Matt Youngman pointed out. You can go online, buy your tickets. That'll make sense, he says.
The big thing would be to go check the website, get the advance tickets bought. You know, you can buy your advance ticket at a discount, and it's going to really speed the process of entry. You know, you just walk up and get your barcode scanned, and in you go. So I'd really advise everybody to check the website. It's a 90-acre exhibit field, so check the map out and make your plan on how to attack the show so you don't miss anything and have to backtrack through that big place.
So the website is farmprogressshow.com, where you can go and map the show and to get your tickets, as we learned from Matt Youngman. Before that, of course, is the half century of progress, where the antique farm equipment will be on display August 26th to the 29th. But here is something you need to plan to see if you like the old antique farm machinery. There's a great museum in the town of Perryville, Missouri, south of St. Louis. It's called the American Tractor Museum, and I will tell you, this is a world-class museum. As I was telling folks the other day, I've been in antique farm equipment museums in Canada, in Australia, Argentina, Germany, elsewhere in the United States. This is one of the best you'll ever find. It is a work in progress. Kenny Buckite has a tremendous collection there, and he plans to have more of them restored, and they plan to add to that existing building there. A little ways north of Cape Girardeau, south of St. Louis, not far from the Mississippi River. They are open there Monday through Friday and the first Saturday of the month. Perryville, Missouri. If you have a bucket list already going, move this one up there a few notches, I would tell you. Thanks so much for being with us on this weekend's This Week in Agribusiness. We'll keep an eye on the weather thanks to Greg Solier, who'll be joining us again next weekend. Mike Pearson will be back at the desk as he's been out on the speaking circuit, and I'll be here along with him. Please have a safe week. Be careful at those rural intersections where the corn is standing tall, and we'll look forward to seeing you here. So long, everyone. Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.